Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome back. It is 2:30, so we will go ahead and get started with our next interviewee. So, Robert Miceli, if you would just state your name, make sure I'm saying it correctly. I just want to make sure.
No, thank you very much. Robert Joseph Miceli.
Thank you. So I want to make sure we have Commissioner Jordan back, and I will just make a note that Commissioner French is testifying on a bill with on Zoom, so he is not back yet, and I do not know what he's testifying on, but I know it's important because he would prefer to be here. So we will go ahead and get started with questions, and Commissioner Jordan, I'll let you start off, and we'll do the same thing where we state the number just to help us all along.
Thank you. This is question number 2. Can you talk about what motivates you to seek this position?
There we go. So why do I want to be your county commissioner? As a father of 2 incredible daughters, I have taken great pride in nurturing the values of selfless service.
Yeah, we just want to make sure it's okay, and then just put it a little bit closer, because on Zoom, we have to have the mics kind of up there. Perfect.
Does this work?
There we go. Okay, Commissioner Jordan's giving us a thumbs up, so I think we're...
Are we good?
All good. Thank you.
Okay, so as a father of 2 incredible daughters, I've taken great pride in nurturing the values of selfless service, advocacy for those in need, and using one's talents for the greater good in our home. These principles have always been a bedrock in our family, and like any parent who strives to be the best version of themselves for their children, I am committed to continuing living out those values as a role model out of uniform, not only for my daughters, but for a call to service for others. I firmly believe in defending freedom and serving the public are 2 of the most noble pursuits. After serving 32 years in military service defending that freedom, I now have an opportunity to apply my technical expertise, combined with my executive leadership and managerial abilities, to follow on that path of selfless service and give back to the community where it all began for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miceli. I think I will move right down to the number 6. If you were appointed Spokane County Treasurer, what would be your initial priorities? Give us an example of where you think the office can do better and how you would approach making that happen.
I appreciate that. If I were appointed as the county treasurer, my initial priorities would focus on building a strong foundation for effective leadership, ensuring the office operates efficiently, and transparently. As someone who has come in to multiple organizations from the top down, there are certain things that I would do in the first 100 days coming from the outside. First and foremost, I'd be sitting down with the deputy treasurer, and I'd be seeking out the institutional knowledge, suggested focus areas, and co-develop the first 100 days. This would be broken down in 4 phases, and in my experiences, phase 1 remains to be the observation and the team integration. This period of team engagement and stakeholder communication establishes the initial onset of what's been going on in the office and what is scheduled to happen going forward. Second phase would be an operational review to include transparency of financial systems and audits. This would include a thorough review of the systems that are in place, the investment policies, and the tax collection procedures as written and codified today, and where we would need to codify best practices. Third phase would be the strategic goals, modernization to explore the opportunities of where we can use current technologies to streamline some of these efforts, along with community engagement. And then my last final phase would be what I would call the long-term vision, bringing the team back together, going back with the key stakeholders and the collaboration to define a long-term vision of sustainable investments for the community and the collaboration with other departments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Miceli, could you tell us what are the core duties and functions of the Spokane County Treasurer? And that is number 4.
The Treasurer's Office is essential for managing public resources responsibly, focusing on the collection and the safeguarding and the investing of our taxpayer dollars. To put this in perspective, in 2024 alone, The office collected $900 million from over 550 residents. These protected financial transactions included supporting over 80 local and regional entities, including 19 school districts. It processed more than $20 billion in transactions and managed the Spokane Public Investment Fund that's close to $1.9 billion. And it has generated since 2023, according to public disclosures, close to $120 million back to the taxpayers, helping minimize the need for additional tax measures. I bring this up because I believe it underscores the vital role and the contribution that the Treasurer's Office makes in our community, in the financial stability and the growth and the future. It also highlights the need of senior executive leadership. I understand the vital responsibilities in supporting the 24 different agencies and the 13 cities and towns across Spokane County. And I am committed to being a steward of the taxpayer dollars, invest wisely, as I have for the federal government and the Department of Defense for the past 24 years. I think it's also notable to mention that the Treasurer plays a role in supporting the Board of Commissioners in the financial health of the county's fiduciary operations and its fiscal policy development, managing investments, ensuring compliance and auditability, and serving as a financial liaison to the board. And the last, I would highlight that the Treasurer's Office is not a policymaker. That authority is reserved for the commissioners, the legislators, the council members, and the mayors. It is charged, however, with policy implementation, and we should be doing that with accuracy, accountability, and efficiency. While in this position is an elected position, my experience in serving under 5 U.S. presidents has taught me a vital importance of staying on mission, focusing on the shared goals and the needs of those we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. That's going to take us, I'm going to do question number 14. How would your fellow coworkers describe you, and how would you describe your management style?
I appreciate that. A lot of people probably do not know that in the military, about 10 years ago, they started doing peer evaluations. And so I was the benefit of giving them as well as receiving them. I think first and foremost, I believe you're going to find that most of my coworkers are going to describe me as a servant leader, or the one who always eats last. Someone that will never ask another to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. Colleagues have commented on my approachability, my degree of compassion, and my emotional intelligence for connecting with those around me. And finally, I'm pretty confident you're going to hear about my steadfast and calming demeanor in times of crisis, reinforced by 5 voluntary deployments overseas, along with my critical thinking, appreciative inquiries, and personal courage with conviction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is number 5. Can you describe your experience working with labor organizations or managing a represented workforce, please?
Thank you very much. I have extensive experience in both, working with labor organizations and managing a represented workforce. Do you have a preference, or would you like me to share both?
Both would be fine with me.
With regards to working with labor organizations, I have had extensive experiences working and negotiating. I've participated in negotiations where I've had to advocate for fair compensation benefits and while considering financial constraints of the organization, always with a balance between meeting the needs of the workforce and ensuring the stability and the sustainability of our organization. I've also had to sit down and work with the understanding of the workers' needs, making it a priority to listen to their concerns, and by conducting surveys and holding open forums. When it came time for managing with represented workforces, I've had to deal with conflict resolution that arise between the management and the union representatives. I've had implemented conflict resolution strategies that emphasize open dialogue and mediations, and I have facilitated meetings clarifying expectations, finding mutual solutions. I've also had to be in charge of training and development for represented workforce, training programs that benefited both the organization and the workforce, and investing in employee development, along with compliance and fair practices. These labor agreements that we've been adhered to and the rights of the represented employees to be respected. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Miceli, I think I'll move to question 9, which is describing your experience with financing and investments.
Thank you very much. As an Army Acquisition Senior Leader, I've had a multitude of experiences managing large-scale financial budget, operations, and investments. Many of my roles have required strategic approach to resource allocation, risk management, and ensuring the efficient use of taxpayer dollars in supporting national defense objectives. More specifically, I've been responsible for overseeing multi-million-dollar budgets for defense programs that required strategic budget allocation, effectively across a variety of programs and mission-critical objectives. I've had to do cost analysis and risk mitigations. I've conducted detailed cost analysis to evaluate financial viability of programs and to identify potential risks. This has helped prevent cost overruns, and it's ensured investment deliver the maximum value. I've also had to deal with a multitude of compliance and regulations within the Department of Defense, federal acquisition regulation, all while maintaining transparency and accountability of the public funds. When it comes to program and portfolio management, I was the Army's program manager for Small Business Innovative Research Program. And during that time, I specifically had to make investments for the Army in innovative technologies at the intersection of defense and commercial marketplaces. This program exemplifies the Army's commitment of leveraging private sector innovation and bringing it in to enhance military capabilities. I've had to prioritize high-impact programs with program executive officers, and I've also had to run potential overrun for investments and lift and shift appropriations and dollars accordingly. And last, I was also in charge of life cycle management costs with financial aspects throughout the life cycle, through the initial development, through the sustainment, and through the disposal stage. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask number 8, which is, can you please describe your experience with public records retention?
With my extensive experience in acquisitions, contracting, and fostering and program management and fostering transparency, public records has been an absolute for the entire time in 24 years that I've been an Army Acquisition Officer in the Department of Defense. It has involved systematic maintenance of records, designated periods, ensuring compliance with legal requirements, as well as facilitating public access to these vital programs, not just in the federal acquisition regulation space, but the Freedom of Information Act and various other electronic management systems that I've had to use in different offices over the years. And all of those times, the records and everything we've done, especially part of the government and Department of Defense, were made public from start to finish. Thank you.
I'm going to go to question number 15. Tell us about a time when traditional solutions didn't work. Describe the situation, how it was traditionally solved, and how you came up with an innovative solution.
I appreciate that. In 2019, shortly after being appointed to be the Deputy Director of the Contracting for the United States Army Corps of Engineers, the President had announced an emergency declaration in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Army Corps of Engineers, where I was the Deputy Director in Contracting, was tasked with providing engineering support, resourcing, and the contracting of 47 care facilities across the nation for the governors. These 47 care facilities, as some of you may recall, could be as simple as converting a hotel into a space where we could bring the COVID patients. In some cases, governors made requests of using high schools or even sports facilities. The traditional approach with the Corps of Engineers at the time would suggest that such emergencies involved activating a predetermined list of contracting capabilities at a federal level. However, given the unique nature and the complex nature of the challenge, relying solely on centralized sources did not meet the necessary requirements or the response times for the governors. Recognizing these limitations, my team and I sat down and we developed an upside-down approach. We used the same presidential emergency authorities to collaborate with the local state-level activities, effectively decentralizing our efforts for the first time in the Corps of Engineers. This allowed us to leverage contracting solutions directly at a local level, kept the funds at the local level with the local contractors and the local governments involved. This ensured that we met the governor's requirements and it achieved a much more urgent response time. This innovative approach not only enhanced overall responsiveness, but also strengthened the partnerships that we found post-COVID with our local entities. Commanders at local across the country had stronger relationships with the local governors after this. So if there was any good that really came out of this, we saw firsthand the partnerships that started to grow as a result of this. Much more effective, timely solutions for the pandemic and challenges that we'll face going forward.
Thank you.
Can you please describe the relationship between city, county, and state governments as set forth in the state constitution? Question 13.
The Washington State Constitution lines it up in the state laws. It establishes a hierarchy, yet a cooperative relationship between the state, county, and city governments. As you know, the state government is the overarching authority that creates the laws and mandates for the entire state. The Constitution establishes this structure and powers of the state government, including its relationships with all the local governments. Counties in Washington are administrative units of the state. They derive their power from the state constitution and operate under these provisions. Cities in Washington are smaller but much more localized in the government compared to the counties. And the interdependency of the state, counties, and cities work together to provide services to its residents. Overall, the relationship and the intent of the way the Constitution is written is that the governance is centralized for consistency, but it is decentralized for local response. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to move to question number 11, Mr. Miceli. This is your view of regional collaboration and supporting other local jurisdictions.
I appreciate this. Regional collaboration has been a cornerstone of effective governance for a very long time, particularly in addressing challenges that transcend individual organizations and individual jurisdictions. It involves a partnership between the counties and the cities and special districts, and it's to achieve shared goals and to better deliver the outcomes for the communities. I will tell you that in my personal experiences in dealing with not just organizations like FEMA and the Corps of Engineers at the local, state, and federal level, regional collaboration, in my experiences, yields 3 positive outcomes. Not only do you get shared resources, but you get shared expertise. You get a teaming where there's a reduction in duplication of effort, which is a reduction of cost and much more efficiency. You can address regional challenges, where as opposed to single jurisdiction would not be able to handle on its own. And ultimately, similar to the post-COVID example that I gave you earlier, it strengthens the interdependencies between urban and rural communities, often with the best course of action in a much more comprehensive and holistic approach. Thank you.
Where was it? Number 12. What do you consider to be the most important achievement of your lifetime?
All righty. Well, considering the 2 gentlemen before me spoke about their families, I would be remiss if I didn't say the same. But aside from marrying one of the most amazing women and raising 2 daughters, I do have to highlight that there is one particular achievement thus far that I'm particularly proud of, and that is mentoring the next generation of Army senior commanders. In 2010, I was selected for battalion command, and I realized I had reached a very pivotal point in my Army career. The responsibility extended far beyond command authority. I had now become the proverbial they. And I understood then what I know now, and that is it was up to me to teach, coach, and mentor those that were aspiring to be in the position that I was at the time, and so we can raise the next generation of Army commanders. During my command, I had 34 majors under my leadership, and as a result of our performance evaluations, I was limited to only identifying the top 30%. That sounds pretty harsh, especially when given the fact that we had the finest officers in the world all joining a very specific, unique specialty. To that end, I was very proud to say that I've selected those 11 individuals, and I was able to teach, coach, or mentor them even to this day. Of those 11 that I was able to mentor, 10 of them went on to become battalion commanders. 9 of them were promoted to full bird colonel. All 9 were also selected for brigade command, and to this day, 4 of them are on track to be appointed as general officers. To this day, I will tell you, aside from my family, that has been my greatest achievement, is teach, coach, and mentoring the next generation of Army senior leaders. Thank you.
So I'm going to go to question number 18. What do you see as the biggest challenges the county is going to face over the next 5 years? How would your office help address these challenges at Spokane County?
So I think I have a unique perspective with regards to not working in the office and coming from the outside and seeing and being part of this community. I would tell you that, in my opinion, Spokane will face some of the biggest challenges in 5 separate areas, and tying it back to the Spokane County Treasurer. 1, the population growth and the housing affordability will be an issue. The number 1 issue, of course, being the budget and the economic uncertainty. 2, infrastructure and public services. 3, I strongly believe that cybersecurity and fraud prevention is going to be at the forefront, especially for anyone working in the fiscal operations and fiduciary world. And 5, I would say that the climate and the environmental challenges that we are seeing, whether it's the wildfires, the water resource management, and sustainability, will also become issues in the next 5 years. So how can the treasurer help in those areas? I would suggest that preparing in the economic uncertainty, the budget and the investment strategies becomes paramount. The treasurer's office can build financial resilience and maintaining healthy reserves and diversified fixed income array of assets in their investments. Enhancing financial transparency and efficiency will help the residents of the county and help the office. In terms of supporting housing affordability, obviously, the office can work with a clear, accessible information on property taxes, make this more transparent and clear to the community, payment options, helping homeowners better manage their financial obligations. It can also offer policies and make suggestions in areas of offering tax relief and deferrals for the vulnerable population, in addition to seniors and disabled that we do now. And then the last would be strengthening the cybersecurity and the fraud prevention. Where I've been for the past couple of years, we have seen repeatedly attacks to the most vulnerable areas of our economy, and that includes the fiduciary operations. And I strongly believe that enhancing the cybersecurity and fraud prevention is going to be a task at hand going forward. Thank you for that opportunity to answer that question.
So for the record, Mr. Miceli and I had the opportunity to visit last week, and I just want to say, as a fellow veteran, thank you so much for your service to this country. Looking at your record, it is outstanding, so thank you. My question for you is, give us an example of a complex project you were directly responsible for, and talk about the political environment in which you were working, the stakeholders, the use of resources, and your ability to anticipate, respond quickly to changing needs.
Wow.
Do you want me to repeat that?
No, I've got 2 very good examples that I can share, but I think the more appropriate one for this, my team and I were tasked with negotiating what I still feel today, after 24 years, one of the most difficult tasks that I ever faced. And if you could believe it, establishing a contract for a dining facility for NATO. Now, if you step back for a minute and you just think about the complexity of this, what we're talking about here is getting 12 nations to unanimously agree on on the complex of diversified fiscal constraints, cultural preferences in menus, operational requirements, and unanimous agreement from every nation. This required navigating a very highly political charged environment, managing the inevitable negative feedback from differing national priorities. And as again, you can imagine, some nations were more fiscally beneficial than others, but everyone had to agree. This created tension in the public meetings, especially when representing and advocating for the nation's interests while pushing back against compromises. There were a couple things that I did. The team, you had to step back and you had to actively listen with empathy to everybody's needs and concerns. Transparency and communication became paramount of all communications publicly available to all nations. We had to facilitate the collaboration between multiple stakeholders, not just one or two partners, but could be up to 6 or 7 partners all at the same time. We had to compromise, and we had to become more flexible, and we had to deal with conflict resolution at the most highest level. I personally not only had to act as a mediator, emphasizing the shared goals and the facility's success for NATO, all NATO personnel, and I was constantly reminding people of the mission success dependent on the collective agreement and the collaboration. I will say that we did end up securing a unanimous agreement, had to do multiple presentations at Shape Belgium, and while the solution was not perfect, the final contract came in balanced budget, all cultural needs were met, operational demands, and the process actually, again, believe it or not, strengthened our relationships among our nations and our stakeholders and made the next dining facility contract a lot easier. So thank you, sir.
But could you help us with Shrek? No, I'm just kidding.
Question 3 is, what specific attributes do you believe make you a better candidate than the other 2 candidates?
First, I'd like to say that it's an honor to be among the 3 candidates, or the other 2 candidates that are here today. I think you have found that all 3 of us are extraordinarily technically capable to perform the roles and responsibilities of the treasurer. What do I bring to the table specifically? I will share with you, I believe that I bring 32 years of senior leadership roles and staffing roles from within the Department of Defense and working across intra-agencies. I have a proven track record of leadership abilities, managing operations effectively, and working with all of the teams that I've led to success in fostering collaborating environments. I have had the full expertise in acquisition spectrum, from contracting to fiscal operations to program and portfolio management. I will say that I have an analytical and forward-thinking approach. It allows me to ask what I would say the smart questions and get to the essence of the matter. I have a proven record of operational excellence, crisis management skills, and I would say strong interpersonal collaboration with key stakeholders. I appreciate that opportunity to share that.
Thank you.
And Amber, I'm going to say this may be our last question, just depending on how long it takes.
Well, you've talked about many different examples of working with a variety of different folks at different levels, but I want to move to question 22, which is really more about how you would work with various elected officials. So describe your experience working with folks in elected office or similar type occupations. What were the greatest challenges, and how did you manage to overcome them?
Wow. As you may have seen from my nomination binder, when I was hand-selected to come up to the Corps of Engineers, I was given 2 tasks as the Deputy Director of Contracts. One of them was based on the Presidential Border Infrastructure Program, and the task of preparing an acquisition strategy that would allow to meet the suspense of 450 miles of border infrastructure within 18 months. It was not unheard of previous administrations working on such infrastructure programs. What made this particularly unique was the fact that now we were surveying the entire line. We were making determinations on where we needed to put a standardized system in place. And I use infrastructure and not wall for a reason, because most people do not understand that the infrastructure program was more than just a visible wall. It comprised of numerous levels of technologies, access roads, and support all the way down to the local border patrol. I would tell you that, as you can imagine, I was called up on Capitol Hill on several times, and I worked with professional staff members on both sides, and I worked with the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Department of Homeland Defense. And I will tell you that being in the contracting director's seat at the time. There were a lot of times when I've had to maintain what I would call maintain the neutrality and just speak to the facts of exactly what contractor capabilities were. What was so contentious was the monies that I was given and the appropriations were taken from other military construction projects. So maybe the elementary school that was set to be put in Germany was not going to be done that year. Or maybe the West Point Barracks remodelization in New York was not going to be done that year. So my job was to focus on the appropriations and the dollars, work with the Haskins Sachs and make sure that they understood what was the strategy going forward to obligate those dollars and to put them in use with contractors that had the capacity and capability to execute. I will tell you that balancing diverse priorities became the #1 challenge for me. I would say that maintaining neutrality, managing communications, and navigating those political sensitivities was a daily occurrence.
So thank you. That is our last question. So I am going to give you a minute for a closing statement.
Thank you for allowing me today to share a little bit of my vision and my qualifications, especially in an aspiration to serve as your county treasurer. A commitment of integrity, accountability, and community service as I see it. Throughout my career, I've been dedicated of ensuring responsible management of public resources. I understand deeply the importance of the Treasurer's Office in safeguarding our taxpayer dollars, fostering financial stability in the community, and with my extensive experience in leadership, strategic planning, and acquisitions, I believe I am equipped to face the challenges ahead with the team to ensure that this office operates at the utmost efficiency and effectiveness. My promise to you and to the people of Spokane County is that I will approach this role with the same dedication that I exhibited during 32 years of military service. I will prioritize transparency and responsiveness, ensuring that the needs of the commissioners and our residents are always at the forefront of the actions that we seek. I will look for opportunities to innovate and adhere strictly to the regulations that guide us, and I appreciate the opportunity for your confidence in the stewards of the taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here and your service. So now we are going to go into executive session so we can discuss evaluate the qualifications of a candidate for appointment to elected office. Matt, should I have you, or I guess I can say it, which is RCW 42.30.101(1)H. How long do you guys, we haven't discussed, how long? 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Start with 15 and then if we need to extend, we will.
Okay. We are going to start with 15 minutes. We do hope to come out and have action, take an action. In the executive session will be the 5 commissioners. Do I need to have? Okay. I think we will have, just usually in executive session we have our attorney. So we'll have Matt Folsom, our attorney, in that executive session with the 5 commissioners. And then we will let you know if we need to extend or we'll bring everybody back in 15 minutes. It is 3:03, so it takes us a few minutes to get into executive session. So we'll start the executive session at 3:05 and be back at 3:20.
Recording stopped.
So we will need to clear